Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022, coming to you from the beautiful North End studios of Daily Detroit. Across the table from me, Fletcher Sharpe. How are you, sir?
Yesterday was really dusty in the city. I'm not really sure what's up with that, and I'm still recovering from getting hit by a few dust balls, but it's okay to bear that because we had such a great time at Ferndale Pride that you can kind of deal with a few dust balls to the face the following day.
Ferndale Pride was quite the get-together. I mean, they were a lot bigger than last year, and it was great to run into so many listeners, so many Detroit City FC fans as well.
Yeah, still working on understanding that like people will hear your voice and be like, that's that person. But it was really great to hear people who actually really enjoyed me coming on and talking about this, so I don't feel like I'm banging my head against a wall in vain. So thank you for making me feel useful.
Well, a lot of people would argue that you are way more than banging your head against a wall. That's for sure. You are definitely making a difference, Fletcher. And part of that is that we're going to get straight into the coverage of this team. I know that our listeners are here for, of course, our shining personalities, but also to talk about their favorite football club on the face of the earth, Detroit City FC. Before we get into the conversation about Pittsburgh's 1-1 tie, I want to set the table because congratulations to Antoine Hoppeneau. We will not be mentioning him much in this conversation because he just had a baby with Molly. The baby's name is apparently Zoe, born on Thursday. All reports, healthy, 5 pounds, 12 ounces. So that would be two familial misses. You had Devon Kerr a little bit back for the wedding, and then you had Hoppeneau for this. Two big life events, and in my mind, absolutely amazing reasons to miss a game.
Yeah, hopefully you have another Detroit City FC ladies winger just doing over there with Hoppeneau. So congrats to them, the whole family.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into that 1-1 tie. You know, at first I was a little frustrated, but then I remembered just how many, we were missing players, things like that. And we got some things in our favor that kind of bounced through for this 1-1 tie, getting 1 point out of Pittsburgh.
I mean, that's what I said was going to happen. We've already seen them play before when they were not playing very well. And Detroit really wasn't playing that well either. Yesterday we saw them play, and they both played really well. And yeah, that's what's going to happen. Iron sharpens iron. Bob Lilly runs his team a very similar way. They even said in the broadcast a few times, tried to compare Trevor James to another coach in the league. Probably Bob Lilly with the way that he makes adjustments. That's very fair. The game went exactly the same way as the first time they played at Keyworth. It started off with Albert Dikwa scoring a goal that everyone thought was offside, that was shown to be onside through a center back's mistake. And then it ended with Maxi Rodriguez scoring a goal from the center of the box, albeit this time not a penalty, to tie it up 1-1 in a very large emotional outpour right after. I expect if they play again, they're probably going to be the same exact game. Dikwa's going to score a goal. We're all going to be like, it's offside. Maxi's going to come through, score a goal in the box, tie it up, and then hopefully it's not playoffs because we go to PKs after that, and it's nerve-wracking already.
Well, I think that's next time we're going to meet them, right? Because we're done with them for the season. We've already had 2 matches.
Yeah, that's it. So if we do see them, it probably will be then. So hopefully we don't see them because I really don't want to watch penalty kicks ever again because while they are exciting, they're the most nerve-wracking part of the sport. They played well. No, this is no disrespect to Carl Ouimet, but they need Matt Lewis back. Of the last 4 or 5 goals they've given up, at least 60, 80% of them have been Ouimet being out of position or his guy being the one to tap the ball in. And more specifically, the goal against Pittsburgh, while he wasn't directly all the way at fault, Devon Kerr kept Dikwa on. If you look at the wide frame, Ouimet stepped up. Dikwa was his guy. Ouimet stepped up and did not, account for the fact his guy was running right by him. And he just kind of stood there to say, I'll deflect the pass. Didn't really move. Ball went through. Dikwa tapped it in.
I was going to say Dikwa made a lot of moves throughout the game where he used his speed, and it seemed to be to his advantage against DCFC's defense.
Yeah, to a degree. In a way, it's also a detriment because he's typically offsides. But the problem currently is Amu Mensah, Steve, and Matty Lewis all have this connectivity, which I'm sure Ouimet can learn to grow into. But you don't really see them getting beat with runs like that. You see them get beat maybe a late runner where the ball goes up front, someone trails the way Maxi scored his goal, someone trails from behind, taps it in. You don't really ever see them get beat because someone runs right between one or two of them. And a lot of the time, Saturday and the past few games, you've seen teams be able to thread nice little through balls between the defense because there's maybe a gap that maybe is not that big, but maybe it's a step or two bigger than normal. It's just enough space for someone to throw a pass and hopefully connect with somebody. And unfortunately for Detroit, it's led to some consternation at the back. I think they'll be fine going forward. It's not like the end of the world. They're not now the bottom of the table. They're still in third place. And given how Wednesday shakes out with Memphis playing against Birmingham, they could potentially be at the top of the table if they win this upcoming Saturday. So it's not the end of the world, but it's concerning, and you kind of hope that Matty Lewis is recovering as quickly as possible.
Do you have any word on that?
Not yet, no. I do know Brad Dunwell was on the bench Saturday in a practice jersey, wearing looked like a kid underneath. I'm sure they probably were going to hold him out for as long as possible unless they needed to put him in there. But it's encouraging to see him on the bench because they also miss him as well. They need another midfielder in the middle to help with what they have going on there. They are a little bit too defensive for my liking. They need someone to kind of get the ball and hold on to it a bit longer. Well, Maxi's doing great with what he can do, but he's even playing a bit more defensively. And of course, Lay Diop do not let him shoot anymore.
Oh, geez.
Strictly like you get the ball, give it to somebody else. No more shots from outside the box for you because I love the audacity. I love the effort, but man, there should be wind blowing when you shoot. So at least it makes sense why it's not hitting at least the frame.
I was a little frustrated, and I know I shouldn't be, but I was a little frustrated with like a chance that Tua Henne had going forward with that. I knew that, it's been frustrating because I know, and even on that particular play that I'm thinking about, I know it's not necessarily his fault, but I just wish he would score more, get a little bit better of a triangulation on the net.
If it's the play I'm thinking about, he made a nice run.
Yes.
Got in front of his defender and tried to one time outside foot it, and his shot, which I think he thought was going to curve, went in a straight line and missed the net by like 6 feet. And it's hard to fault someone for that because it's already an amazing play just to get in front of your defender like that. But I don't want to bring like the American football terminology into it where it's like, if you go to catch a ball and it touches your hand, you need to catch it, because that's really hard to do with the soccer. It's a very different sport. But I feel like if you get a chance like that, you got to at least put it closer to frame. Like, I'm not saying you have to go upper 90 or bottom corner or even blast it into other, but like you got to at least put it to where the keeper has to dive. You don't want to hit it when he just turns and he's like, oh, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to even attempt that because I know it's going wide. I know Francis is trying. I know you can see that he's putting in the effort to get there. It's just he is not putting the ball in the net. And I was always a little bit cautious when they signed him because I loved him in college and I was very excited to see him on the team. I talked about him a lot. But I looked at his stats from the USL and I was kind of confused as to like, this guy hasn't scored a goal in quite some time. And I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because he's been hurt. Maybe it's because he's been playing, as a sub kind of. I'm seeing what it is he has the accuracy of a shotgun. When it goes in, it goes in. But most times you are hitting nothing. And he still either leads the league or second in shots per 90 minutes, which is like great if you also are like there on shots on goals for 90 minutes and goals per 90 minutes, which really means if you don't start, they take your average and kind of stretch it out for a 90-minute game to see how potent you would be. And the more, I guess, promising bench players have high ratings for those because it shows that, okay, if they play a bit longer, maybe they'll be a bit better, but we can use them in a small amount of time and it's great. Francis averages a lot of shots, does not average many shots on goal and almost no goals per 90 minutes. And that's a little concerning when you have moments where he's going to have some more time on the field.
On the flip side of that, if there's any coaching staff that could do some work with that, I think it's going to be Trevor James and his crew.
Yeah, you can already see that, like, not to say that Francis never looked unconfident ever, but you could see a bit earlier in the season he looked a little bit gun shy. I saw some highlights from a few years previous where he looked also still a little bit gun shy. He's letting the shots fly, which in a way is good because at least it's showing his confidence is not broken. But in a way, it's also not good because if you shoot and miss entirely and the ball goes out of play, like that's the end of your offensive possession. Now the ball goes to somebody else. And there's some really great offensive possessions. I can think of one earlier in the year where he was running on the left side and Michael Bryant was on the right side waiting for a cross. And Francis took a shot that like hit the outside of the post, like right where the net was, and Michael Bryant like crashed into the post. Like, bro, are you kidding me? And I was like, yeah, I feel that entirely. Like, I was like, cross the ball, send it. Ah, man, like if you're going to take that shot, you got to at least make the keeper make a save. That's the rule for like anyone who's still learning the sport. If you're going to take like a really crazy shot, it's either got to go in or the keeper's got to make a save. If you miss by like a mile, like the only thing you can say to your teammates is, I'm sorry. And that's it.
Before we move on, I want to make sure to give recognition to Nate Steinwasser because this match would not have been a 1-1 tie without him.
Oh, no. If Nate had a family emergency, which we'd all understand, this would probably be a 3-1, 4-1 loss. He made some saves, specifically a breakaway save on Michigan native Russell Cicerone, streaking right towards the net. Had a nice shot on frame, and Nate got a leg out to kick it. There's a situation earlier where there's a little bit of a scuffle that all the Pittsburgh fans were really keen to want to bring up, that a goal should have counted because we pushed one of the defenders into Nate, and then afterwards they said Nate should have got a yellow card for stepping to a player. No, we don't. No, he shouldn't have. He was even if someone pushed a player into him, like, keepers need to be defended. They are the ones playing, above the ground. It's not very fair. But Nate played great. He showed that he is one of the top 5-6 keepers in the league. Maxi Rodriguez showed that he is deserving of his rating on FOTMob. He's currently the second highest rated player in the league at like an 8.2, 8.1 rating.
I mean, I'm so glad to see his evolution. Like, he's getting stronger out there shooting, But remember we had the discussions? That gives me hope for Atua Hene because I think players can make moves as the season progresses.
Yes and no. Maxi's deficiencies were different. He was scoring all of his goals from the penalty spot. He was not scoring his goals from run of play. So like it was, okay, I have 7 goals, but 6 of them are penalties. Doesn't really mean you affected the game. It just means you got out there and hit the ball into the net with no one in front of you. Maxi's evolution is kind of coming from the fact that his defense is still remaining solid. He has a defensive midfielder next to him who's allowing him to push up more and allowing him to kind of be that last run. He's got forwards who will occupy space enough. As they showed, he's typically a late runner. So the ball's up top. There's 3 people up top, 4 people up top. He waits a second, kind of like Rashid did with the Pistons, where he'd kind of wait a second, come back and hit a trailing 3. Maxi's like, I'll wait a second. You guys all get up there. My guy's not looking. Now I'm going to sprint up towards the box, get a touch, maybe get a chance to shoot. So he's allowed to do that more because the team is kind of solidified, gotten a little bit better. Not that they weren't good before, but it's kind of grown with the continuity of the new players versus some confidence versus just all in all teams not marking him coming up.
Fair. The thing that stuck out for me while listening to that broadcast, and I had to laugh, I should have made it a drinking game, how many times they said, this Detroit City team is for real. Like I was literally sitting there going, I should have made this a drinking game and done a shot, and then I also would not be sober afterward.
As a sports journalist, I'm not going to try to tear down another person who's into sports journalists, but I'm so tired of hearing Devon Kerr on the air because all he does is like say, well, Detroit needs to do 1 or 2 things and they'll be considered taken seriously. Then it's like they do those 2 things. Well, now they got to go do something else to be taken seriously. It's like literally every game that they're on, you cover. It's like, well, yeah, I know they got to win in the Lamar Hunt Open Cup, but like they got to go win a game on the road. Then they win a game on the road. It's like, well, I know they did that, but then they got to come home and at least get some points against this team. And they do that. It's like, well, then they got to like stop. Just I know like part of that is just a journalistic part of like I need to push stuff forward so people pay attention, but like stop. At this point, you've moved the goalpost across the entire field. Like it's fine. You can admit even Bob Lilly, one of the best coaches in the USL, one of the best coaches in the country, is like, yeah, this team's very serious. We knew that the first time we played against them. While everyone else is kind of worried about, oh, they're new to the league, what their fans might do. Like they legitimately like were playing teams off the field and they've been together for quite some time. So we need to be aware of that. So when he says that, like, I don't care what anyone else has to say. That's like, making a beat and Jay-Z's like, I would rap on this. Okay, maybe he wants it, maybe he doesn't. But the fact that he even considered it means it's quality. So I know hearing him say that finally was in a way good, but also like, bro, you're a month and a half late. Like
Yeah, it only took us being in 3rd place and the idea that we might actually get a home playoff match for you to realize.
And it's the fact that like you watched them while they played in Nisa too. You did games when they played in Nisa for BN. So like you've seen them play for quite some time. I don't know why you're acting like this is a new thing. You're well aware of the team for year and a half or two. You like to make that point all the time. Like, be aware. Like, let us know you're aware and don't just use it for like Twitter arguments. It's very weird behavior.
Week 2, week 3, understand. This far in, yeah. All right, let's get into Sacramento Republic FC. That's our match next week. They're on the edge of the playoff bubble over on the Western Conference. This is going to be a little bit different because, we don't play Western Conference teams as regular. It's something where, the scouting's going to be a little different, that kind of thing. The Western Conference, I think it plays pretty similar to the Eastern Conference, unlike other sports where there's big differences. What are some of your thoughts on this one? I feel like Detroit City has a good chance on this one to make 3 points out of the 8 you think they need out of the 4 upcoming games. And right now, I think 3 points would be a really big deal.
I was a little bit more worried before I kind of went into my deep dive about them. I'm still a little bit worried because teams from the West tend to play a bit more of a more expansive game, but their record in the league is not that great. They're 7th, which is not terrible, but it's 7th. And their leading goal scorer has 3 goals and 2 assists. And like, he's like their player who gets everything going for them. And that's it. Like, they don't have anyone who has more goals than 2, really. They have one guy with 3, one guy with 2, a few guys with something else. A few guys have a couple of more assists. But, like, they just get by being scrappy. The reason why I was worried is because for the U.S. Open Cup, which is, again, a separate thing, they're the last remaining USL Championship team in there. They outlasted Louisville, who lost to Nashville. So they win the $25,000, I think, is what the remaining team for each division wins. So congrats to them. I kind of got a little bit worried about that because they've beaten a few MLS teams. But again, they don't really have that much firepower. They kind of rely on the fact that they just keep games low scoring. They're also making a cross-country travel, which is going to be hard on them.
And they're coming into Keyworth, which I think changes. If we're going to Sacramento, I have more worries. They're coming to Keyworth. Obviously, we need to hustle on this. Every match is a hustle. But when you're coming into Keyworth, I think it's a whole new thing, and they've never been to Keyworth before.
That plays a little bit into it. The fact that the area around them is going to be a little bit more chaotic than normal, I'm sure. I think, honestly, the travel is going to be a factor as well. Even if they're traveling and playing 2-3 days later, I know that I've had to travel, like take bus rides from here to Rockford, and I got off there, and I was like, I don't want to go run. I do not want to go play football. I would like to take a nap because that was terrible. So I can imagine flying across most of the country to fly into Detroit, then get to Hamtramck. Probably not going to be the best. They could be looking forward. I know they have LA Galaxy 2, then they have Los Angeles Galaxy in the U.S. Open Cup. So they might be looking a little bit ahead to that U.S. Open Cup match. If you catch them slipping, I think they can do well. With Hopino back, I think they'll have a much better offensive game against this team. I think, like normal, they don't get blown out at Keyworth. In regulation games, I know a few friendlies they did, but they don't. If they lose at Keyworth, they lose 1-0, 2-1, whatever. They're not going to get blown out. So I see this one being maybe 2-1, 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Sacramento, it's a tale of 2 teams. At home, they're 4-0-2. Away, they're 1-3-2. Right? They're just 2 different teams depending where they are. So I think that reinforces your argument even more.
Yeah, I mean, specifically in lower league teams, you tend to see the good teams stellar at home. Away, they're at best like decent. I wouldn't say they're great, but like they'll scrap out a point. They'll grind out maybe a nice 1-0, 2-1 win, 0-0 draw. You don't see good teams like great at home and then terrible on the road. Like that's the recipe for just missing out in the playoff spot. So yeah, I think 3-1, 2-1 might be right.
All right, before we move on, are there any specific players we need to keep an eye on, Fletcher?
Yeah, they are led by 34-year-old Rodrigo Lopez, their center midfielder, and Matt LaGrassa. And their leading attacker is Douglas Martinez, who is from Honduras. He has 3 goals, 2 assists. Not a flashy player, but an effective one. He'll get the job done. He won't do a bunch of step-overs. He's not going to bring the pedigree that, say, Juan Aguadella brought and then took with him because he did not show at Keyworth. Someone we should be paying attention for is that, especially given the fact that our defense has been a little bit leaky. We don't really want to give a guy who's scrappy and will fill spaces a chance to step up and put the ball in our net.
So a bit of news came in, and we don't normally look 2 games ahead, but in this case, I want to mention it just because it's a big deal, and not necessarily about the on-field thing, but as far as the hype, that we're going to be on actual ESPN in 2 weeks for our noon game against the El Paso Locomotive. This is a huge deal to me for the city and the region. Like this kind of exposure on ESPN, not ESPN Plus, not ESPN, what is it, in Espanol. It is ESPN, the main thing at noon. If you turn it on around the nation, you're going to be watching Detroit City FC. And some people that I know were surprised to see that, but I'm not, considering the crowd atmosphere and considering that Detroit is a town that loves its sports.
I mean, I think it was that. Plus, also, unfortunately for El Paso, it was going to feature one of the starlets of the league, and Diego Luna, not the actor, but Diego Luna, the soccer player.
What is it with USL teams with Diego Luna, and then you got Danny Trejo? Like we got all kinds of people with names of movie stars.
Yeah, but Diego Luna, right as the deal was announced that El Paso would be coming to Detroit on ESPN, like the following day, El Paso announced that they had just sold Diego Luna to Real Salt Lake. So he'll be playing on ESPN a lot sooner than El Paso will. But for Detroit fans, that's great because Diego Luna is a handful. And while neutrals would love watching him run up and down the left and right side of the field, most fans of Keyworth would hate it. They would hate it so much. One thing I can say to preview that game, besides the fact that it's on ESPN, so if you really need to see it and you can't get to Keyworth, you don't have to go through some weird streaming service. You don't have to go to ESPN Plus. You can just go to ESPN regular and boom, you're there. I said it before and I'll say it again because I want people to be prepared. El Paso has a player, defender, older guy named Yuma, Yuma, and you're going to hate him. 100%. I'm talking like Robert Horry hits game-winning 3 NBA final, Larry Bird in the 80s. You're Michael Jordan in the 90s. You're going to hate him. He's that type of player that, like, if he's on your team, you might not like what he's doing, but you'll respect it a bit. You're going to hate Yuma. Yuma is just someone who you watch him play, and it's like, God, I wish he would fall in a hole and never get out of it.
So El Paso in the standings is just one notch above Sacramento. What's the big difference between the two teams to you?
El Paso will put the ball in the net, but they will also give up goals. They played a bit more of a frenetic pace at times, a lot more often. And of course, they have Yuma, who is a guy who, if the wind blows funny, he'll go down like he was sniped through the back of the skull. He's the worst. He's drawn, I think, like 3 red cards this season already for like incidental contact just because he has the hair to like throw his head back and it makes it look like it's more contact than it is. So yeah, I think he's a big difference. He's kind of like Draymond Green with the Warriors, where like you have to account for someone like this because emotionally they lead your team and emotionally they can take it out of another team. Players like that matter in situations like this, but outside of the play style and that one player, they're not that different.
Okay.
But different enough to where they have different records, obviously.
Now, before we go, which of course we will be at Keyworth this weekend to check it out, 7:30. You should be too. Make sure to get your tickets. If you're going to be in person, it's just a great experience. You know, I was up at the Mackinac Policy Conference. People up there were talking about how awesome the experience was with Detroit City FC. Like, if there is one thing that gets through, soccer or not, even talking to like the Secretary of State or whatever, like everybody loves the experience of Detroit City FC. So if you have not made it to a game yet this year, do so. And I think this could be a good, set of games to get into it, and it'll be a lot of fun and should have some good weather. But we also need to talk about something else, Fletcher, that's near and dear to your heart. Many
people know I went to U of D Jesuit, Go Cubs, AMDG. I ran track for them. I was almost really, really good. I finished my career with a honorable mention All-State in sprint. I got to the meet, got blown out, realized at that point, like, I need to work harder. That's a story for a different day. But recently, about 8-9 years ago, a new coach took over who is the father of a former kid who ran at U of D, Coach Carl Brock. Really good pedigree of training, ran his own little club team out in Ann Arbor, and they were really, really good. And he said one day we're going to win a state championship. It's going to come sooner rather than later. And his premonition came true. This Saturday, U of D Jesuit won the D1 state championship in track. Really happy for them. A little bit embarrassed because he asked me to come talk to some of the kids like about a month ago, and I said no, and he was like, why not? And I was like, because I don't want to jinx them. I do not want to talk to these kids about prepping for these big races and then they lose, because I'm going to like go cry in my bedroom for quite some time. So the fact that they won, I'm like, good. They didn't need to hear anything from me. That's awesome. There's so many great kids on that roster who deserve this. The coaches do as well, and I'm glad for them, because I was there. I was in a situation with the school, with other teams, just trying to do the best we could, and we didn't really have as much support then. I'm glad to see them have the support now with enough of a team that they can actually fully win like a state title. In order to win a state title for track, like you need to have not just like a sprinter or whatever. You need to have like a few sprinters, maybe a hurdler, maybe a shot putter discus, maybe a few long distance people to try to round out points. When I got to states, we had 4 entrants and I was 2 of them. So I'm not going to win you a state title. I'm not that fast. I understand that. But they have a few kids there that have been putting in work. Some names you might hear, hopefully the next Olympic trials, because some of these kids are flying. It's one of the few times I've been happy to see my name move down a record sheet for the 100-meter dash, because the kid there definitely deserves it. Shouts out to him. Shouts out to the Cubs. I'm losing words to describe it because I'm super happy for them.
I do know one title you do have, sir. Hamtramck Boat Races Champion.
Well, I mean, yeah, but...
I mean, that's the definition of beer league, my friend.
I mean, I'll take it. I really don't want the water balloons that come with it, but I'll gladly take it because it means I'm doing something right.
Could we do a fundraiser with water balloons? Like if you donate to Daily Detroit, you get more water balloons?
No. They can find another way to support where they donate, but just I don't want it to come because some of these people, there's a kid there, and I don't want to get too long with. There's a kid there who we made eye contact, and as soon as they said go, and I pushed the thing, I watched him rear back like he was like Zeus in a lightning bolt, and the force at which he struck me in the temple, like if I was not pushing a man in a cart heavier than I was, I probably would have fallen over. So like I don't want to encourage that. Like I'm all for whatever we can do to help promote the show, and of course the boat races because they're great. But if it means more people throwing at me, no, no, I'll be selfish there. Not at all.
Fletcher Sharpe at Saint FDW on Twitter. It's good to talk to you, man. I'm looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, it should be really, really great. Also, we'll see each other Friday because Friday is the 1000th episode.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about my own party. That's going to be a good old time. That'll be a lot of fun at the congregation.
Yeah, it should be great. I know I haven't been around for all 1,000, but I've been around for enough to where I feel like this accomplishment for me too. So
it is 100%. We couldn't do what we do without you. You're not just with Detroit City FC, but you know, it's great when you pinch in or you do different things. Your voice is appreciated, and so is your friendship.
Yeah, someone has to accept it, so I'm glad that someone finally is.
All right, well, with that, I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.